Hi, I'm Michelle Chalfant, psychotherapist, holistic life coach, and human just like you, learning to navigate life's challenges. With over 25 years experience, I teach people how to get healthy using the adult chair model. The adult chair model is where simple psychology meets grounded spirituality, and it teaches us how to become healthy adults. From anxiety and depression to codependency and relationship issues, you can use the adult chair for just about anything. Each week, I share practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and a wide range of experts on how to get unstuck, how to live authentically, and how to truly love yourself, all while sitting in your adult chair. Welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. So welcome to the podcast, Dr. Kenneth Adams. We're so happy to have you on the adult chair today.
Nice to be here, Michelle. Glad to be here. Excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited after what you and I were just chatting about before we started, before I hit record, because I absolutely wanted to talk to you about enmeshment, but now we're going to even add men enmeshed with mothers. So we have a lot to cover today. So I'm going to jump right in with you because you are the expert with all of this. And what I was saying to you earlier is it fascinates me the number of people that don't even know what the term enmeshment means. So I thought that would be a fantastic place just to start.
Of course, sure.
So tell us a little bit about that. Like, what does enmeshment even mean?
So enmeshment is a term that's you're actually hearing a little bit more of it in the popular culture, by the way.
Yeah.
From time to time. So enmeshment implies too much closeness, too much entanglement. It's historically has been used to describe a variable family system functioning, how families function together. So on one end, you have these families who are disconnected,
Yeah.
right? And they don't have a lot of emotional closeness, a lot of distance, and they produce their own problem in their offspring and their adult children. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have families that are on the surface very warm and close, but if you dig deeper, in some of those systems, they're enmeshed, meaning that there's too much closeness. So can you indeed be too close to a parent or a family? The short answer is absolutely yes. Especially in these enmeshment implies excessive dependency, closeness at the cost of my independence, and that the love contract is defined by obligatory guilt and loyalty, not about freedom to love you. So in these enmeshed systems, so you know, in all families, there's a negotiation between, are we visiting at this holiday or not this year? Well, we're disappointed. Well, next year we'll make sure we visit, but this year we're going to Hawaii or whatever. So families that are not enmeshed may share feelings about missing their adult children, but they accommodate those differences. In enmeshed systems, separation is seen as disloyal, and they tend to be closed to outsiders. So enmeshment, in the context that we're talking about, really describes a dysfunctional, meaning non-functional, in the sense that the system is serving the parent. So in enmeshment, the dependency grab, right? It's a sense of ownership. So I'm going to hold on to you because I need you to fill me up, right? And so therefore my needs become the priority in this dependency. Your needs, if even considered, are secondary.
Give us an example of what that would look like in a family. Give us an example of enmeshment.
Well, it could be frequency of contact. It could be that the mother is calling her son every single day and he's trying to have a life, right?
Yes. What about 3 times a day? I know. So I remember I have had some clients that have said, well, my mother calls me not just once a day, but sometimes 2 or 3 times. And then the mother would guilt my client if my client and she worked all day, you know, kind of thing. This might be an example of enmeshment.
Yes. Frequency of contact. Although interestingly enough, frequency of contact by itself doesn't define enmeshment, right? So I know families who have regular contact, but there's not obligatory binds of loyalty. In other words, if you
Mm.
tell me I'm unavailable, I don't punish you.
Yes,
I
that's
don't make you feel
key.
I don't
Y-
make you feel guilty. So
Yes.
the example is I call you and you need to be my loyal subject, my loyal lover. Don't leave me. Tend to me.
Mm-hmm.
No
Yeah.
matter what you're doing, I need you to drop it. Even if it's your anniversary weekend, I need you to come visit me this weekend. So what the enmeshed
Yeah.
man or the enmeshed woman does, in this case, I don't want to pick on mothers because although we have more men enmeshed with their mothers that we work with,
Yeah.
uh, than women. And we mentioned earlier that's because I think women are more culturally reinforced to stand by their parents. So they don't
Yes.
always see it as a problem and they have a harder time emancipating.
Yeah.
And the man in their life, if they're heterosexual, the man in their life isn't complaining. He's off playing golf or having an affair or drinking. So go out,
Mm-hmm.
take care of your family. I can go do my thing. That's not the case when it's reversed, where the man is enmeshed with his mother.
Mm-hmm.
So if he is, she gets put in the back seat, the spouse or partner,
Mm-hmm.
and he obligates himself to his mother, right? So he calls her every single day and he tells his wife, "You don't understand. She needs me."
Yes.
So in the background conversation is this secondary conversation. He's beginning to dismantle his relationship with his partner.
Yes.
And he's demanding implicitly or explicitly that she take the loss
But
rather than the parent
yes.
take the loss.
Oh, that I cannot tell you the number of people that I know that have got. I'm thinking of my own father. Honestly, my father. We come from an Italian family. My father chose my grandmother over my mother. And it was always she came first. And he had an identical twin brother. I lived enmeshment. Like it was, that's all I knew growing up. So it was, yeah. Anyway, so I can see it a mile away now. I know what it looks like. I can see it now. I'm like, oh, I know that. Um, how does
Yeah.
it happen? How does it happen that we become enmeshed with a parent?
Well, so often the family system is already embedded with this cast of loyalty, right? And
Yeah.
obligatory assignment that roles are assigned and you're dutifully bound to
Mm-hmm.
me. And oftentimes in the parental relationship, one of the parent is left lonely. So usually it's a fairly non-functional or not very satisfying romantic relationship between the parents. So then one of the parents will turn to the child,
Oh,
usually
yeah.
the sensitive, empathic child,
Yeah.
almost always as a target, right? The kid who
Mm-hmm.
says, "The hell with you" is not a target, right?
Yeah.
Temperamentally is more feisty, not likely to get targeted. It's usually firstborn, lastborns, sometimes gender defines it,
Mm-hmm.
but almost always it's temperament. The empathic, sensitive soul in the family gets
Mm.
glommed onto by the lonely parent. So usually there's a lonely adult
Mm-hmm.
parent
Mm-hmm.
who's looking for either she or he has their own dependency issues, right? I
Mm-hmm.
can't function without somebody being right next to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to have somebody constantly right here. We call that excessive dependency or codependency.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm very narcissistic, right? What I think and what I need is the only thing that matters, and you're only of value to me when you're in my drama, right? So usually dependency and narcissism are the two personality trait issues we see in these parents. So usually there's an emptiness in the marriage or a dysfunction,
Mm-hmm.
or there's a system reinforced that obligation is how we define our love. So one or both of those
Mm.
are operable, and and then they turn to the child. And what happens is that the younger the child is when the parent, we'll call it gloms on,
Yeah.
exploits the sweet soul of that empathic kid.
Mm-hmm.
Don't cry, mommy. I'm here for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And boy, when I hear those stories, on one hand, we have lots of kids who are not empathic enough, right? And that's another problem in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
But these kids are too empathic, and it's the parents' job to say, "Honey, you don't worry about me." But in these enmeshed systems, they say, "No, no, I want you to worry about me."
Yeah.
So they exploit this. So that's how that happens. And the earlier it happens, the earlier in the developmental process as a kid, you begin to normalize it. It begins to feel normal to be close to mommy and to
Mm-hmm.
take on her problems. And if she cries, I cry. If she worries, I worry. So by the time they reach adolescence, emerging adulthood, where the pursuit of a romantic partner, sexuality, industriousness, looking for careers, trying to find their way, pretty soon I can't go too far
Mm-hmm.
because I've got this link that makes me feel really anxious and guilty if I go too far. So that's how that happens, right? This burden of excessive dependency and neediness has become my problem,
Mm.
and I internalize it. I don't know the difference,
Yeah.
right? Because it happened so early in my development as a child that it's now normative for me to take 4 phone calls a day from a mother, even though my wife is wanting me to talk with her. And by the time I go talk with her, I'm already angry and resentful that I had to be available to my mother. So now I perceive or feel that my wife is smothering me. So now
Wow.
she gets the stiff arm.
Yeah.
So this enmeshment has a direct impact on romantic availability. So,
Wow.
and sexual availability. You don't need to be sexually violated physically to have your sexuality hijacked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sexuality unfolds, it becomes part of you in your journey of independence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to learn to steer that erotic journey as yours.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not free to be yourself, it gets compromised. So either it gets shut down or I act out sexually. So we have sex addicts and those kind of things, which
And
is
it's
its own.
what's fascinating, Ken, is how
Answered your question.
what'd you say?
I hope that answered your
Oh,
question.
it did. It was beautiful. Thank you for sure. And then some. I've written down about 10 more questions based on how you responded to that. Here's a question though. What's fascinating to me would be how unaware these people are that are enmeshed with their mothers. Like they don't get it. And then they're projecting the anger or blame on
Mhm.
their spouse instead of the suffocation, honestly, that they're not feeling from their parent. They're so unaware of it. So how would where does one begin to even start becoming aware of it? Because typically, even in my clients, I'm like, well, what if we pull back on calling mom many times a day or even once a day? Oh no, she'd be so upset with me. And mom's my best friend. When I hear mom's my best friend, it sends up such no, like no, 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 red flag city. I'm like, no, 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 no. So tell us a little bit about that. How
Well,
like
so
boundaries are foreign, and the thing that I hear, my mom will never change, my dad will never change. They're older, they're not going to change. No, 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 no. Your marriage is being destroyed here.
mhm. Yeah, so you bring up a good point. So implicit in your question is the hope from your client or clients that we know is that
Mhm.
somehow my parent will eventually cut me loose.
Yeah.
They'll understand that I need my separateness. And the truth of the matter is, and we talked about this when we were chatting up front, is that emancipation is not a negotiation.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
Your parent is not your God. You do not need their blessing. You'd like their blessing. It'd be better if you had their blessing, but it's unnecessary. Your emancipation is completely your assignment to get started on as soon as you can. And so therefore, waiting for your parent to co-sign it is part of the problem.
Yeah.
So having some education like you're doing on the podcast, just bringing people's awareness that this is not normal and your parent is not your God. I think about the famous Lebanese poet Gibran. I'm going to get this not quite right, but he had a poem on children. He said, children were, are life's longing for itself. They come from you, but they are not yours.
Yeah.
Now, I get that a little bit wrong, and, and please
It's
forgive me.
no, it's
I have to,
beautiful.
but the truth is, the parent has bastardized that. I'll
Hmm.
say it on purpose
Yeah.
because it's trouble because the parent has become the God. And as I mentioned to you earlier, the parent's last spiritual assignment before their kid goes off and becomes their own man or woman is to take the loss. It's the parent's job to take the loss. It is not the adult child's job to accommodate the parent's grief and cushion it.
Mm.
So being aware that they're not their God, that there's a greater spiritual assignment for the parent that they're failing in, that they have a responsibility to, begins the process of being able to say, oh, I didn't realize that I can separate and still love my parent. Because that's always the worry, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I separate, if I emancipate, having a boundary, by the way, is not the same as emancipation. I can have a boundary and not call my mother every day, but basically I'm sitting on my impulse and I'm still filled with guilt. So I'm really not emancipated.
So true. That guilt.
Boundary,
Yeah. Yeah.
boundaries by itself are necessary in the healing process, but by themselves, they don't guarantee separation. In other words, my real estate is still the internal real estate or territory that I call my own is not my own. My mother is still there. My father is still there. So you have to bring some awareness through education, which you're doing. It's great that you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I would say this. You said that they don't know that they're being trapped, or the truth is most enmeshed adults feel conflicted and feel angry and resentful and too burdened by their parent. Most of them will report that. It's just that they don't know what to do with it. So
Yeah.
it's not true that it's asymptomatic. It
Mm-hmm.
is symptomatic. I do have some frustration and resentment. My mother smothers me. So there's usually some awareness. It's
Mm-hmm.
rare that I find somebody completely without that awareness. The trouble is they do displace it, as you said, they project it onto their spouse.
Yeah. And they feel trapped because
Yeah.
they feel like if I set a boundary or emancipate from my parents, I'm going to lose them forever. They're going to hate me. They're not going to love me anymore. So then they do feel trapped. I agree.
Yeah. And the truth is the love affair as it once was is over. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, I know that with my own son who's off to college right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was glancing at his pictures the other day. We have all every year, and I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
I miss that little boy. We used to go to the baseball field every day, and
Yeah.
he doesn't have time. He's running for president of his photography group, and and I'm delighted that he's on his way. I can't tell you how excited, but there's a missing in that. The truth is the love affair between parent and child is over. It's also over for the adult child, which is hard so sometimes the adult child won't fess up that I like being the golden boy or the golden girl. I don't want to give that up.
Yeah.
So I also have an investment in it.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's less of the reason. I think more of it's the guilt and
Mm-hmm.
obligation. But it's
Mm-hmm.
true. Once I emancipate, that's over.
Well, and I would think that the identity gets built around this golden boy, golden girl. And it's like, if I'm not that, then who am I?
Who am I?
Who
Yes.
am I? And that's terrifying. If that's your false self, like that's all that person knows. Who am I now? And the idea of cracking that open and becoming really the true self is terrifying because we don't know who we are without that mask. So,
Well, I think you're right on. And I think that complicates it and makes it even more dangerous to emancipate because then I have to become an autonomous, separate person and figure out who I am and reconcile this
yeah,
identity journey, right? And
yeah.
identity is if you follow the great famous Eric Erickson
Oh,
development,
yeah.
you know, identity cuts across a lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
And getting back to the parent's job is to come up against their own crisis that they've lost their little boy or little girl, and they're on their own now. And now it's the parent's job to turn inwards and say, now, who am I?
And grieve the loss.
And where am I?
Yeah. And that's hard. We just had our older son is in grad school now, and our younger son is a sophomore in college. And my husband and I, when that younger one left and the house was empty, even when the older one left, we started looking at each other saying exactly what you said, like, wait, who are we?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I sat and cried and grieved, and I wanted to reach for those kids. I'm like, I'm not doing it. Got to cut them loose, let them have their own life, let them develop into whoever that they're meant to be. But man, it was hard. And when
Oh,
I remember posting about it on social media, and people were like, nobody prepares us for the loss when these kids leave.
no,
Nobody.
I agree. I think, I'm so busy helping men and women unhook
Yeah.
that if I had more time and more help, I would create a parent's piece of the puzzle. So to
Yeah.
help support them, because I get sometimes parents reach out to me and say, my son or my daughter just identified being enmeshed. What can I do?
Yeah.
And I can hear their legitimacy. Now, most of the stories I get, because I get a biased sample, I get the part of the sample in which is obvious
Yeah.
logical holding on. We get a lot of parents who punish, who will indeed turn their back on their children, which is really hard to watch and listen to. They make it, you got two choices. It's me or nothing. It's me or you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And so I hear a lot of that heaviness. And but I agree with you. I think there's a sort of other group of parents who could really use some support,
Yeah.
who understand that they need to let go but struggle. And here's the irony, and we talked about this: is the more you let go, the more your kids want to visit,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
True.
it's hard to trust that.
It's terrifying.
I know it, but because there's a transitional space, right,
Hmm.
between the little boy and the little girl now becoming their own man or woman, and
Hmm.
they're going to return though
Yeah.
with you as a peer, right? And
Yes.
that takes a while.
Hmm.
And the more that you can stand back, it isn't as if you don't reach out or
Yeah.
you know, the dog's getting old. We better talk about.
Yeah.
There are things that you reach out around that have obligatory hints to them or dependency, but primarily the parent who lets go invites a return by the young adult
Yeah.
in time,
In time.
in
It
time,
might not happen right away, but they do come back.
right? And it's hard for the parent who has been in a marriage or a relationship in which it's empty.
Hmm.
And that's a secondary problem because now I have to face the crisis that what I have in front of me is not working.
Yeah.
And so don't leave me a young adult son or daughter, right?
Hmm.
Because the reason I need you to stay here is because you cushion me against my loneliness.
Yeah.
That's unfair. That's unfair to the child.
Oh my gosh, it's such a big responsibility for that kid, the
Yeah.
adult child, then to take that on. It's not their job. Not
No.
their job. No way. Mm-mm.
So they really need education. Coming back to your question, they need awareness,
Yeah.
more of this kind of stuff. And they need to understand that they can indeed emancipate and still love their parent.
Hmm.
And even some of the worst cases that I've heard, and when I say worst, I mean the punishing, really stubborn uh, parents. I'll use the word stubborn descriptively, not judgmentally. Intractable, we'll call them.
Hmm.
Many of them will at least resign themselves and they'll
Yeah.
behave themselves.
Yeah.
If they know best, that's what they'll do. And eventually they get onto the fact that I better let go. There's a small percentage of parents who remain um, punitive.
I was going to ask you that. So for the people that are hearing the show today, they're thinking, oh gosh, I need to emancipate from my parents. Uh, but I'm terrified that they're going to hate me and cut me off. So you're saying it's a very small percentage of parents that come back and
Well,
cut them off or end the relationship or.
in these more pathological or dysfunctional systems where you have
Mhm.
a parent who has excessive narcissism
Mhm.
or dependency, remember those are
Yep.
those two traits,
Yep. Yep.
there will be problems early on. It'll take
Mhm.
a year or two,
Mhm.
4 seasons. You need
Yeah.
4 seasons. We know
Yeah.
that in the grief process, right?
Yeah.
You need 4 seasons.
Yeah.
You need a year minimally to hold yourself at bay and let the
Mhm.
parent make adjustments and yourself. And that it's not a 1 week, one boundary process. It takes time. And it means moving from divorcing, and we use this word on purpose, which is
Mhm.
going to really raise the anxiety of your listeners.
Mhm.
It's divorcing implicit and explicit contractual demands that I
Mm.
must remain loyal and obligated to you. I divorce that. I am no longer under contractual arrangements to meet you that way.
Mm.
I will care about you. I will love you. I will visit. I will call, but I'll do it on my terms. So that's the message you give to the adult child trying to emancipate, and you help him or her begin that process by awareness,
Mhm.
by boundaries,
Mhm.
but by committing to a different contractual arrangement. I'm here for myself. I'm here for my partner or spouse. I'm here for my kids. I'm here for my career. My parents come down the list.
There you go. I was just going to say that. It's about rearranging that list.
Yes.
Who's your top priority? You've got to take mom or mom and dad off of that number one spot. You've got to move them down. Um,
And be willing to lose your own golden boy or golden girl status
yes.
and face your own crisis.
Yep.
That who you said it well. I wonder if it isn't. I don't want. I don't want to do both jobs here. Your questions and mine. But I wonder if we can talk a little bit about the price that the spouse or partner pays to be
Yes.
involved or married to an adult whose obligation is to the parent, or let me say this, the parent or the proxies of the parent.
Yes. Please, let's talk about that.
Brothers, sisters, other parent, the entire family, cousins. Oh my goodness, I mean, I can't tell you the number of people who line up in front of the spouse, right?
Yeah.
You know, we've got people who are so enmeshed with their family systems that their cousins get priority over the spouse.
Wow. Yeah.
Because,
Please talk about this. Please.
so yeah. So, and the reason is that a lot of the answer to your question, how does the change process occur?
Mm-hmm.
Often I get people in the midst of a crisis in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be initiated by the spouse. I've had enough. You choose me or your mother. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. There is no, I've been accommodating this. And of course, the enmeshed man or woman has learned to placate, right?
Mm-hmm.
We call them in the workshops that we do for these folks, we call them troublesome compromises.
Yes.
They're so skilled at it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just trouble.
Yeah.
They make nobody happy, including the adult, him or herself. Nobody's happy.
Yeah.
And so, eventually there's a crisis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if something happens in the relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
the partner says, "That's enough. I've had enough."
Mm-hmm.
And usually what they've had to deal with for years is putting up with a second fiddle, as they say, and backseat.
Yeah.
And I have to demur to what your family wants on our vacation, for God's sakes, for the fifth year in a row, right? I don't want to go to Florida and sit in the condo with your parents as they complain about your brothers and sisters anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to go on a vacation. I don't want to visit. So visits, by
Yeah.
the way, are different than vacations. Enmeshed
Yeah.
family systems don't know the difference, by
Yeah.
the way. They don't understand that
Yeah.
a
No.
visit is not a vacation. A visit you have to prep yourself and go see your therapist with. A
Yeah. And
vacation,
it's not relaxing for your partner either, by the way, this quote unquote vacation.
no. So they've had to put up with loss typically.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
can't tell you, excuse me, I can't tell you the number of emails I get from spouses. I get these long paragraphs. Oh, I watch your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I have um, a YouTube, Dr. Ken Adams. So I get someone who
Mm-hmm.
will watch one of my podcasts on YouTube on my website, overcomingenmeshment.com, and I'll get 5 paragraphs, and this on
Wow.
a regular basis. And it's like a spouse of somebody who's been committing infidelity or sex addiction, right? They've got a whole story, and they
Well, it
want.
feels like that. It
It is
feels like you're in the, it feels like your spouse is having an affair, but it's with their mother or their father. It's the same
exactly,
thing. Yep.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly, because you are not the priority, and that's exactly what it feels like. And you almost feel guilty for wanting to be the priority.
Yeah.
Usually there's a crisis. Usually they've put up with loss,
Yeah.
vacations they didn't want to take, money being spent on the family of origin rather than the family that they've procreated. By the way, that's one of the, if you look at the list of healthy family system variables,
Mm-hmm.
if you go into the family therapist
Yeah.
system literature, which is where I first learned about this stuff,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
system.
For sure.
You'll find a list, a common list of variables that identify healthy systems, healthy family functioning. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the ones that pops up routinely, which makes all the sense in the world, is that the family of procreation, meaning the family I create, is a priority over the family of origin. Now,
Mm.
notice the word over. It is not equal.
Yeah.
It is not equal. The enmeshed man will try to make it equal.
Yep.
Everybody gets a fair share. So now the spouse
Yeah.
is over here. I don't want a fair share.
Yeah.
I want to be your beloved. And I want you to be my beloved. I don't want your parents in the middle of our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I want them out the door.
Yeah.
And so usually at some point the spouse says enough. They've had enough of a loss and burdening. Sometimes though, they don't reach that point. And that's unfortunate because
Yeah.
then what happens at that point, if there's kids, the grandparents, that enmeshed system moves into the grandchildren. And if
Mm.
you don't have that boundary straightened out, that my family of procreation is my priority over my family of origin, once the grandparenting moves in, it's very complicated. Very. So now the obligatory assignments double. Now
Mm.
I have to go visit my mother with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
She wants
Yes.
to see the kids, and
Yes.
she's going to co-op one of my sons or daughters. Now you call grandma now regularly. Will you see how I'm doing?
Mm. Yeah.
So that now the spouse is in another position of having to decide: do I stand up for my son or daughter and say, no, not his job to call you. You call him.
Yeah. Oh
You're the,
gosh.
you're,
Yes.
you're the
Mm-hmm.
grandparent. You
Yeah.
give to him. He doesn't give to you.
Yeah.
One of the beauties of being a grandparent is you get to dote on your grandkids.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to dote on you.
Yeah.
And
Oh my gosh.
so so once again, the spouse is in a predicament.
Yeah.
Do I say enough's enough? And at some point, in order for a spouse to regain herself, she has to get there. She has
Mhm.
to say enough's enough.
Yeah. Wow. So how does someone though that is enmeshed again that lacks some awareness, and I hear what you're saying, it takes some awareness, but so what are the first steps outside of boundaries? Like, because I've got to my feeling is, and just from all the clients I've had that have been in this, there's so much guilt.
Mhm.
Like, how do they do it? Can they do it on their own? Do they need to go to therapy or coaching? Like, how do they do this? Or your program? I know you have a lovely program. We'll talk about at the end, but that's a hard one because the amount of guilt. This is what I hear all the time. And I have so much guilt. I can't not call my mom every day or 3 times a day. I can't do
Right.
that. It would hurt her feelings.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt my parents. It would hurt them. You know, it's like, what? No, wait a minute. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, they can't hear that.
They
You know,
can't hear
no,
it.
they can't
No.
hear that. But so, I mean, you've almost answered your question here. And that is that they need a therapist or a coach or somebody in their corner. They need assistance to declare that they are of value, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what about when they fill up with shame or they fill up like, oh my gosh, I'm such a bad person. How did I let it get like that? You know, I feel like I hear that a lot too. Um, I think you're right. It is about getting a therapist and really or a coach and just getting some help, someone that can
And it's
validate you
important,
what's
it's
going on.
important that the therapist or the coach understand the trouble is that if the therapist thinks that they have to help the person get out of their guilt by giving some to the parent,
Hmm.
they're going to miss the mark.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many therapists have this confused.
Mm-hmm.
And present company excluded, of course. There's a lot of therapists who grew up in enmeshed families
Mm-hmm.
because we were trained. Yeah, I was.
I was right.
My mother's family all came from Hungary, and
Oh
they were.
yeah.
So I grew up. It was like eye color in my family,
Yeah.
and so I've learned the hard way. And
But isn't it about, I want to ask you this before you answer. Could it be as simple as sitting in even their grief? So I get that what you're saying, the parents, when the adult child emancipates, or when the child goes to college, we as parents need to feel our own grief. But if I'm an adult child going through my own emancipation, I have to feel the grief in not being the golden girl, the golden boy, not calling. I mean, it sounds a lot like codependency. And I know this is a symptom of codependency, but what is your...
Yeah, so you could argue that codependency is a symptom of enmeshment.
Yes.
There's a lot of ways to get to being codependent,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So codependency is this sort of cluster of behavior that's over focused on others, if you will, at a cost to the self, and feeling guilty, and not being willing to pursue your own needs and so forth. So there's more than one track to get there to codependency.
Yeah.
Enmeshment is one way to get there. So you could argue that symptom, that codependency symptom, in this case, can be a sign of enmeshment, but it might be could be a sign of abandonment and abuse.
Yeah, it could be. I get it. But is the healing to really get in there and feel what's going on? Because I think that we avoid feeling these emotions and we go into fix-it mode, whether it's enmeshment or codependency.
Yes. It requires though adjusting the belief system. It is not my assignment to make it easier for my mother to do what is her responsibility.
Ooh, that's good.
So
say that again. I want to make sure everyone heard that. That was really good.
You really have to challenge the belief system in the adult child.
Yeah.
It is not my responsibility to do what is my mother's assignment to begin with, which is to take the loss. So without that, it's fighting uphill. The therapist, I have a one-day training that I do for therapists called Best Practices, because I was getting very frustrated because I have these men and women come to my workshop, and then they'd be all fired up. They'd have this space. Oh my God, I know what freedom feels like now. I'll call my mom when I want to, not when I have to. But then by the middle of the week after the workshop, they've collapsed because the therapist says, don't you think you ought to negotiate with your mother?
Oh, God.
let's have her come into therapy. And I'm like, oh my goodness, no, that's not the right move, because they need a whole year minimally of feeling their own space, commitment to their life, their partner, their kids, their career, and then letting mother and father go and let them adjust. And yes, let me come up against my own grief and the fact that I have people who are disappointed and angry with me, who used to love me endlessly. That's not easy. Yeah. And you're right, that has to be reconciled. But without the shift in the belief that it is not my assignment to pick up what was my mother's assignment to begin with. And so the therapist or the coach has to be on top of that. So now I have a referral list on my website, overcomingenmeshment.com. And so there's no endorsement of these therapists. There's just a list of people who've been in this one day workshop. Yeah. Because at least I know I've given them the do's and the don'ts. I call it best practices. So one of the questions is, should we do family therapy? And the short answer I say is no. Now, having been trained in family therapy, it kind of goes against the grain. But the truth is no. Emancipation is not a negotiation. It is a declaration. So you do not advise group therapy? Well, no group. Family therapy. Excuse me. I meant to say family therapy. No, I don't. Not in the early stages, because think about it. If you've got this young man, or actually by the time people enter therapy, they're in their 30s or 40s and not young anymore,
Mm-hmm.
except that they're stuck in adolescence or early adulthood, emotionally
Yeah.
typical.
Yeah.
And so they're barely getting their sea legs under them
Mm-hmm.
around,
Yeah.
okay, I can see now. I didn't call her for a week. I showed up at Christmas or Hanukkah, and we gave each other a hug. And okay, I'm learning that I can do this, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if I invite them into family therapy, all of a sudden I'm barraged with my brother and sisters and fathers
Oh, yeah.
complaints, and I'm reassigned the role. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have enough moxie in me yet to say, no, not
Yeah.
doing it. And by the time I get there, family therapy is unnecessary.
Mm. So it's
So,
something you do independent of the person that you are enmeshed with.
absolutely.
Yeah. So even doing like one, like even having, son, mother show up, let's say in quote unquote couples or in a therapy session just with son, mother would be
Well,
not advised.
so, but it almost feels incestuous. So when
It
I when I
does.
when I ask the guys about this, they feel icky. It
Yeah.
feels like my wife in the therapy session. It
Yeah.
feels like a couple negotiating with my wife.
But I
And they,
think about the guys that are, I'm thinking about the men that I have in my practice that are so uncomfortable setting that boundary with their mom.
yeah, and yet they must.
They don't know how to do it. And they must.
They must.
If they want their marriage to survive, and if they want, I mean, it can't even be good for their own health to be living like this,
No. And I
you
think
know?
the other answer to your question is you have to track with them. But let's stay with the guilt for a little bit. What's that like? Really
Yeah.
don't let them escape it, right? Because
Yeah.
they'll say, I feel guilty. Let's not talk about it. Because that really is what they're doing, right? They're trying to dismiss you as the therapist or the coach. Let's just push this aside. I feel too guilty, not possible. Let's move on and talk about the cat or
Yeah.
my problems in my
Yeah.
marriage. And your job as the overseer of the healing process is say, well, let's slow this up. Lower the let's lower the cadence, the tone, slow the
Mhm.
cadence down and say,
Yeah.
tell me about that guilt. What's that like when you get off the phone
Mm.
and get quiet and let them tell you what it's like? What's that like? What do you do with that? Well, I start drinking. I go act out sexually.
Mhm.
Oh, well, this sounds like something that you just can't just blow off. So you want to, ironically, you want to take them into that emotional place that they're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
Don't let them avoid it. They need to feel some of that discomfort because it motivates them to do something about it. So I'm not proposing that that the therapist gets masochistic or sadistic with them, but you have to hold their feet to the fire a little bit.
Mm. This was so amazing.
Well,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. Like I have 3 pages of questions that I have. As you were talking, I was writing so fast. So
well, we
we
can
might
visit again.
we
So
might have to have another visit, Ken. I'm not gonna lie, because I have so many questions going through my head, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your research in this, for everything that you do for people out there, because this work is needed.
well, thank you.
Really.
You
This
know,
was phenomenal.
well, thank
Phenomenal.
you.
Mhm.
What I didn't mention, I didn't want to see too self-promoting, but there's just not that much literature out there. I've got 2 books, so they could crack the books.
Yep.
Silently Seduced When Parents Make Their Children Partners.
Mhm.
When He's Married to Mom, How to
Mm.
Help Men Overcome Enmeshment and Open Their Hearts to True Love. Both of those books I've done. I've got videos and so forth on my website, overcomingenmeshment.com. My YouTube, Dr. Ken Adams. I have these workshops, which I can barely keep up with anymore, where these workshops, they're 4-day workshops that are now Zoom based because of the pandemic, but they've also worked out pretty well to my delight.
Mhm.
And they're really designed to create that space that says,
Mhm.
oh, it's true. I don't have to negotiate this.
Mm.
I do get to be free. I can love my parent on my terms. It is their job to deal with it. It's their job to support me. So the workshop is designed to shift that internal sort of template away from this obligatory contract into a sense of freedom. And then the boundaries are much easier.
Mm. So this workshop is not for therapists. It's for people that are needing to emancipate from their parents.
Correct. Correct.
Gotcha.
And
And
but I also have a separate workshop for therapists, which will be listed on the website. I have another one coming up in September.
okay.
It's a one-day workshop, best practices for the therapist. That's different.
Perfect. Okay, we're gonna put all of what you just said in the show notes, so everyone will be able to find you, follow you, and get your books and learn as much as they can from you. Because this topic is kind of like you said. I mean, like I've been a therapist for 25 years. It wasn't until the last few years that this term enmeshment
Yeah.
started coming up. You know, more and more and more. It's like, wait, we gotta get this out there. So thank you so much for your time today. This was fantastic. We might need a part 2 at
That's
some
great.
point.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for
Yes,
having me. You're great.
thank you. Thank you so much.